Before we start this video, we have an update to the last one. I think at this point, I'm just going to start every video by saying Eric Charmella is the alleged whistleblower's name, and hydroxychloroquine has shown limited positive results for coronavirus patients. Those are the two unsayables that will bring you Susan's axe. The former got my stream banned last fall. Supposedly saying a name was a credible threat to life, and the latter got Wednesday's video taken down as well, apparently for contradicting the World Health Organization's infinite wisdom on coronavirus, even though I simply played a clip and responded to it in exactly the same way CNN does on YouTube, with zero punishment whatsoever. You see, it's not that lies aren't allowed on YouTube, it's just which lies and from whom. All lies are equal, it's just some lies are more equal than others. And speaking of the lies that are just fine on YouTube, how about hands up, don't shoot? It is still the mantra of choice for Black Lives Matter demonstrators to this day, as though it ever happened at all, and as though it's what happened to George Floyd. The news broke 5+ years ago. That was a lie. Michael Brown never surrendered. He never put his hands up. He never cried, "Don't shoot." The evidence presented to the grand jury didn't demonstrate that, and so they brought no charges. Obama's Justice Department investigated and didn't find that. In fact, witness testimony and the evidence showed that Michael Brown punched and grabbed the police officer, Darren Wilson, reached inside the cop's car and grabbed the cop's gun, trying to gain control of it. After Michael Brown was shot in that struggle, he ran away and Wilson chased. Wilson never shot Brown with his back turned. Only when Brown turned around and charged Wilson did Wilson fire fatally upon Brown. And that report I just read wasn't from the racist country bumpkin prosecutor's office. It was from this guy working for this guy. If these two black hyper-progressives can't find racism with their fine-toothed social justice combs, if they can't even plausibly invent it into this case, you can bet it isn't there. But the good news for the race hustlers is nobody's going to read this 86-page report about what actually happened in this case factually. So you can still repeat your dumb lie chant on the street and have people believe it. Unless, third time's the charm, unless you believe that everybody else who investigated this case was actually incompetent. We just need one true hero to finally bring justice for this violent shop robber turned attempted cop killer. See, that's the thing about Michael Brown. The more you look into him, the more you realize this isn't a guy that you want to defend. The better strategy is just stop digging for the facts and repeat the mantras. If you're committed to the lie, the facts are not your friends. So don't go digging for them, just keep them buried. But digging for them was the promise of newly elected St. Louis County Prosecutor Wesley Bell, who ousted the former prosecutor who failed to bring any charges against Officer Darren Wilson. Bell campaigned on a pledge to revisit the investigation of this case. And please do prepare your shocked faces. After yet another 5-month-long investigation, Wesley Bell still can't find any basis to bring any charges. This he announced in a press conference Thursday.
The question for this office was a simple one. Could we prove beyond a reasonable doubt that when Darren Wilson shot Michael Brown, he committed murder or manslaughter under Missouri law? After an independent and in-depth review of the evidence, we cannot prove that he did.
And he won't discuss any of the factual reasons why. "I'm not here to relitigate the case," he says.
Out of respect for Michael Brown and for his family, I do not intend to relitigate the evidence in this case. These facts have been aired in public time and again.
Yeah, except relitigating the case is the only reason you're speaking right now. You just spent 5 months relitigating it. And now you're telling us the results of that relitigation. And if you had found new facts, I assure you, you would be happily relitigating before our very eyes. That's the only purpose for you standing here. It's not that the facts are sensitive, it's that they don't suit your preferred outcome. And since you found no new facts other than the ones that have been publicly available for years, are you now prepared to admit that you were wrong? Or are we just going to skip over that part? Yeah, we're going to skip over that part, of course. We can't preserve Michael Brown, but maybe we can preserve the narrative on a flimsy foundation of lies if we just repeat them enough. That was actually the bulk of this press conference. Sure, the facts don't support calling this case murder or manslaughter, but it did expose a broader issue of police racism.
Michael Brown's death exposed to the nation the deep-seated and long-standing pain felt by the greater St. Louis community and the entire country. For decades leading up to the 2014 shooting, law enforcement in Ferguson and around the country over-policed communities of color, used disproportionate and unnecessary force, and violated many citizens' constitutional rights.
No, the only thing the investigation exposed was Michael Brown as a criminal who made poor choices when confronted with justice. That's it. He earned what happened to him. And the same thing will happen to the next guy who tries it. White, black, or whatever shade in between. Attack the cops and you're going to have a bad day. But sure, let's just keep pretending that the cop was the problem, and that's the reason people are still rioting to this day.
When we look around the country today, we still see this occurring. When Michael Brown died, this community's grief and anger exploded, and people took to the streets to protest.
Notice the language on protests. Remember? These weren't riots either. They were peaceful protests way before they were cool. City blocks burned, property destroyed, journalists attacked, and more.
Is inside, whether it's... Sorry, I just got hit by a rock.
You mean a mostly peaceful rock. Besides, if the rioters' cause is correct, and you came to office on the promise of advancing their cause, why are you now dropping the case? It's a contradiction he references with Michael Brown's parents, too.
This is a very tough decision. It's always hard to have to tell a family that you're not going to be able to give them the justice that they want.
Well, why can't you give them the justice that they want, though? Is it because that would actually be injustice? Is it because what happened to Michael Brown was, in fact, just? Both morally and legally? That's the truth of the matter that these ideologues can't and will never say. Even when their own investigations lead directly to that truth, they can't accept it. This prosecutor was heckled by the very same activists with whom he's allied.
You lied. You said you was going to get a special prosecutor. Why you ain't sitting down at Ashley Hall? What about Terry Tillman?
What about this? What about that? What about the truth? When are we actually going to confront it? And if we're making a list of whatabouts, what about the actual victim in this case, Officer Darren Wilson? Because upholding Michael Brown falsely as a hero...
There are things, however, that we must do to honor both Michael Brown's memory...
necessarily means smearing Darren Wilson falsely as a villain. The prosecutor maintained that portion of the lie throughout this event, repurposing the classic Mueller line that this isn't exoneration.
I also want to be clear that our investigation does not exonerate Darren Wilson. The question of whether we can prove a case at trial is different than clearing him of any and all wrongdoing. There are so many points at which Darren Wilson could have handled the situation differently, and if he had, Michael Brown might still be alive.
Yeah, there are so many ways Officer Wilson could have handled the situation differently, and Michael Brown would still be alive. After killing Wilson, and that's the point, if you have to wait until you're dead to defend yourself, that defeats the purpose of self-defense. More importantly, though, yet again, we hear a member of our justice system undermining our most basic principle of justice, the presumption of innocence. If you can't prove his guilt, we presume Officer Wilson's innocence. And the philosophical reasons that keep him out of prison are the same reasons we should apply to refrain from smearing his character. But that's all anybody wants to do here. Listen to these idiotic questions. Hey, did you dig into Darren Wilson's past to find any dirt we can toss onto this multi-year dumpster fire of aborted justice?
During the 5-month investigation, at any point, was there any attempt to look at Darren Wilson's previous police record and to see if there were any determination that his actions were based on anything such as him racial, anything that just may undermine the encounter?
And notice the answer isn't no because that's irrelevant. The answer is no because I can't dig into every aspect of a person's life that way.
Now we're getting a little bit outside of what my office has the power to do. Those types of changes would have to come from legislation.
Well, speaking of legislation, why can't we just ban Darren Wilson from being a cop?
What we do know is that Darren Wilson is still able to be a law enforcement officer, even though the community condemns him as a murderer. Is there any way that you could suggest to the community to move forward with legislation that would prevent such a person from continuing on with that career.
Why would you need to do that by law when you've already done it by mob veto? Darren Wilson is not policing Ferguson anymore. Darren Wilson is not policing anywhere anymore. Wilson resigned from the force that fall after the shooting, despite a grand jury's exoneration, and little is known about what he's been doing or how he's been living since. New Yorker magazine caught up with him at his undisclosed home location the next spring and summer after the shooting, and Wilson was just laying low, trying to protect his newborn daughter from persistent threats. Despite plenty of letters from supportive police officers, Wilson wasn't receiving offers for a cop job. He tried to work as a cop elsewhere, but he couldn't. It's not clear what he's been doing in the years since, but last he spoke publicly, he said he was unemployable, all because of a lie. And now it's 5 years later, and the lie has been debunked again and again and again by everyone who investigates it, including now a progressive activist turned county prosecutor. The facts aren't there. But we ruined a guy's life anyway, and to the true believers, it's still not enough. We have to lie even more to ruin this guy's life even more. 5 years after the fact, when nobody even knows where he is or what he's doing. Darren Wilson becoming a cop again is not a threat to Ferguson. The threat to Ferguson is this commitment to delusion, despite every attempt to validate it, actually doing the opposite, exposing it for the absolute bullshit that it is. Michael Brown as a victim of systemic racism is a lie. Michael Brown as a victim of anything or anyone other than himself is a lie. What happened in Ferguson being anything other than a violent criminal meeting the fate he chose is a lie. Hands up, don't shoot. No, the lie is up. Stop pushing it. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.